Jenny-Jaymes and our sidekick, Christian Cano, partner in crime, is coming up next.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen's sidekick. Welcome to Two Queers in a Truck. Hi y'all.
See you. Good morning, everybody. It is another edition of Two Queers in a Truck with a little I Will Survive in the background. And it's always an old school pride theme that played heavily in the gay clubs in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
That's right.
I think it's like mid 70s when this music came out. And so we're just probably about 4 weeks from International Pride Month. So this is Two Queers in a Truck. It is May 10th. I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I'm my partner in crime, Christian Cano.
Hey, Boo.
Hey, Boo. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I guess we live in pretty interesting times. I mean, I had at least 15 topics I could have talked about today. I mean, it just seems like 2023, there's just so many bizarro news topics and craziness. Yeah. And, we got, some good things like Tucker Carlson getting fired from Fox. May he rest in piss. Even though he's not dead, but he's a horrible human being. And he's really the first topic. And I know we talked about him a lot last week, but a really in-depth article came out about it in the New York Times about what led up, or Fox was very candid on why they fired him and the way they fired him. And so they released a lot of the reasons why. And one of them was the really disturbing way he talks off camera. So if we think he's really shitty on camera, it's nothing compared to the stuff that he wrote in private emails, and not just about January 6th, but kind of gave a clue of his thought process. And one of them I'm going to read. I typically don't like to read too much on air, but he wrote something on January 7th, and it was Tucker Carlson. It was an inside memo. And it was actually Exhibit 276 in the trial for the voting machines too. That they just, they never went to court, but this was one of the things that they cited as why they got rid of him. And it says he's talking in the first person here. He said, a couple of weeks ago, I was watching a video of people fighting on the street in Washington. It was a group of Trump guys surrounded around an Antifa kid and started pounding the living shit out of him. It was three against one at least. Jumping a guy like that is dishonorable, obviously. It's not how white men fight. Yet suddenly I found myself rooting for the mob against the man, hoping they'd hit him harder and kill him. I really wanted them to hurt the kid. I could taste it. Then somewhere deep in my brain, an alarm went off. This isn't good for me. I'm becoming something I don't want to be. The Antifa creep is a human being. Much as I despise what he says and does, much as I'm sure I'd hate him personally if I knew him, I shouldn't gloat over his suffering. I should be bothered by it. I should remember that somebody loves this kid, and I would be crushed if he was killed. If I don't care about those things, and if I reduce people to their politics, how much better than I am if he I'm butchering it. But it was really chilling on the mentality about how he was so comfortable personally. And this is something he didn't read on the air. This isn't something. This is people. This was sent to coworkers, and it really gives light. And there's several more things, but more or less between internal problems with that type of thought process, he made it real clear he was really hard to work with. Obviously, there was some very racist stuff in there. There was a lot of some very dehumanizing language. And all around it just paints him as who he really is, his on-screen persona, or cosplay, or whatever you want to call it. Tucker Carlson is clearly less than human. He's one of those. He's an animal, like a feral animal. He just it's all about him. The cruelty is obvious. And quite frankly, Fox probably doesn't really care about that nearly as much as what it costs them, what it's going to continue to cost them. But it's, at some point, and I'm sure the $787 million loss, had a lot to do with it. But I also think, too, at some point, no matter how gross and politically driven Fox is, it's not like the owner and founder of the company isn't getting any younger. And it's also, too, I think they're starting to maybe realize that they're fostering something that isn't sustainable. And so at some point, even the majority of the time, even the biggest shitbags, which the Fox owner and founder, he's an absolute shitbag. Rupert Murdoch is not a good human being at all. Never has been. But when your shitbaggery starts costing you, human beings do one of two things: either end up shooting themselves in a bunker like Adolf Hitler, obvious coward and cruel human being, or you start to realize, okay, this is how I'm going to be remembered. If I kick the bucket tomorrow, this is how I go out. This is going to become my legacy, is that I've unleashed the Kraken on American society for 20 or 30 years. It's getting worse. Maybe I'm part of the problem, but I can also be part of the solution. Obviously, I'm not real hopeful for Fox. I think, being a shitbag is their brand. But at the same time, you kind of hope that, maybe this punch across the face, the $787 million, and clearly what they've become. This isn't the first bad guy they fired. Tucker replaced a shitbag. It was not like O'Reilly was a good guy. He wasn't a good guy. He was a terrible guy. He did the same horrible things at work and worse, and got Fox into trouble with his behaviors too. So who knows? I guess there is a limit on what Fox will and won't do. But I guess we saw it with Tucker Carlson. I hope it's a trend. I hope he's not the last person they fire. And who knows if they'll even survive as an entity. I'll cry no tears if they do go out of business. And I don't feel sorry for Rupert Murdoch at all. He is a shit stain on society. No full service hospital. A hospital, and I'm not even sure where the city is. It's a video that I saw on Twitter, and it was an 85-year-old woman that didn't want to leave. She never had gotten fully checked in. The emergency room had said there's nothing wrong with her. But the video, when she was talking, you could tell her words were slurred. And it wasn't alcohol. She was definitely in distress. She was actually petrified to leave. And so the emergency room called the cops to take her away because they were saying that she's perfectly fine. She's just throwing a fit. There's something wrong with her. And basically he's saying, at this point you're trespassing. If you don't leave on your own, we're going to have you arrested. Bearing in mind, this is an 85-year-old woman that is struggling to get out of a wheelchair. And the police manhandle this woman, throw her in the back of a police van. On the way to the police station, she has a stroke, or was probably having a stroke in the emergency room, ends up dying in police custody. For one, the police were so callous, and I'm not going to say all police people were like this, but I found the majority of them are. And I guess we already know that the protect part doesn't exist because of Uvalde. We watched the police cowards just sit by and let 19 kids get slaughtered. But the serve, you kind of hope, at least one of these guys would have just said, maybe we should ask the hospital to just do another once over and check her in or something. At the very least, make the hospital actually do some due diligence, because they would have, if they'd have hooked her up to the proper equipment. Clearly, they never hooked her up to any kind of monitoring equipment, because they would have known that her body was under distress and she was in the early stages of a stroke. It is real obvious. I had a grandparent that actually didn't die of a stroke, but had a stroke, and it's something other than orderlies had been handling that and actually taking care of this woman. I don't know. She would have survived the stroke, but she would have done better in a hospital having a stroke.
So what's happening? Do you know with that?
I don't know the follow up because it just happened.
Okay. Wow.
But the video is just, it's real clear, and how callous the cops talked about her in front of her. Just, again, the real dehumanizing language. One was complaining, I guess, because she got a little sick when they were loading her in the deal, and it was like, oh, my uniform's stained now, and then on the way over, they were saying, can you believe how much she's faking this and how far she's taking this, and because she was having stroke in the back of a van, so that there's a lot that goes with the stroke, but it's a very painful, and it's not a pleasure cruise. She's not going to the circus or anything like that.
Jenny, where was this?
I'm short on the details as far as what city this was in.
That was here. That was in the United States. I mean,
it was in the United States. It was yeah. It was all English speaking American. Looked like a fairly large city, and but I think really why I'm talking about this is just the callousness of people in power, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's a Tucker Carlson that I use the term journalist real loosely when you're talking about Tucker. I don't really consider him a journalist. I consider him an entertainer.
Yeah, he's an entertainer. Yeah, he's not a journalist.
Yeah. He should be a journalist. He should be more responsible than he was. In fact, if anything, I consider him responsible for a lot of the violence that's happened, since he worked at Fox News and encouraged, a lot of this. I mean, when you cheerlead along just callousness and humanity, I mean, the fact that I would have looked at this lady as a law enforcement officer or as a hospital worker, God, if that was my grandma, I think maybe we should just do a little bit more due diligence, a little bit more caretaking, a little less cruelty, because at the end of the day, law enforcement's still in that social worker community service deal. The hospital definitely is. Yeah. There should have been a caseworker called or something. It seemed like there should have been some steps of due diligence between dragging an 85-year-old lady out of a wheelchair that you could clearly tell this had nothing to do with mental health. It was real obvious to me, and I'm not claiming medical expertise. I repeated that a lot in COVID, but I do have just enough common sense to realize I think this woman's under duress because of a medical thing, and obviously she belonged in a hospital. no matter what the case was. And definitely law enforcement wasn't needed. It was a really cruel and unnecessary step.
Sure.
We are in our first break. I will be right back with some more Two Queers in a Truck. Hey, everybody, you can catch us on your favorite audio podcast platform, Spotify, and all Apple Store, the Google machine, and whoever else does podcasts. We're on there. We broke in, and we're staying. So enjoy the Two Queers in the Truck on your favorite audio podcast platform. Thanks for listening or watching. Bye-bye. Happy time. And we are back. But yeah, these topics probably aren't as funny as they normally are, but it really, when I read the Tucker Carlson article about why in detail, it just made me, realize that our society in many jobs has become very, very callous, very, very jaded, very dismissive. And you see that with hospitals a lot too. And I experienced that with my ex, and she did have mental health problems, but then I would tell her that's why we're checking her in, and they're wanting to dismiss her real quick. And I'm like, no, she's under duress. She's needing, some acute care. And I've seen this with my own eyes with hospitals, and especially with the front desk, front end emergency room people, how dismissive they can be, how callous they can be, how flippant they can be. And you're just going, this is why we have so many problems. This is why we have so many homeless people. This is why we have, so many people that don't get the proper care they need, because a lot of people aren't doing their jobs. A lot of people are picking cruelty or the easy path. And Tucker Carlson's one of them. It's easy to get up there and lie and be cruel and let your politics dominate your words. I really just say some really stupid and irresponsible stuff. But then again, what do you expect from Fox? They're the lowest grade of entertainment. It's
exactly
just red meat for low information voters that just aren't the sharpest tools. These two things I'm about to talk to are kind of related. A guy named Chris Robbins that is a weather reporter and runs iweather.net, went off online on his business page, no less. It's on Facebook, is iweather.net, and talking about a little girl that was ringing his doorbell, and he said his gun was locked and loaded, and that people shouldn't ring doorbells in 2023. And this little girl was looking for a kitten. And, so it's probably, I'm going to say a 6, 7, maybe 8-year-old girl. There's no pictures of her, but it just by the description. And you look at this guy's a white guy. Little girl is a girl of color, younger. And I compare and contrast to another video I saw on Twitter where a little white boy that was probably about 7 or 8 years old comes to his friend's door. Mom answers, and the kid says, "Is Monkey there?" Now, the kid's real name is Jaden. He's black. He's a boy of color. Kid, and going to the door is a little white boy. Mom answers the door. He says, "Is Monkey there?" She goes, "Well, are you referring to Jaden?" And he goes, "Yes." And she goes, "Well, that's not a very nice name." She was pretty nice, about it. Like, she didn't go off on him or anything like that. And, this little white boy just proceeded to see if he could come out and play. And Chris Jaden said, "No, not today." Or Jaden's mom said, "Not today. It's basically, you've already screwed up. I don't really want him around you." But
yeah, exactly.
Nice, it's like, if I was the mom, I would have said, "Well, maybe we need to call your parents and we need to talk about this." But so he left. But two instances where two different types of kids go to the door. One's looking for a kitten, as a little girl color, and a person that is a probably middle-aged white man is talking about having his gun locked and loaded, and he walks us back. So he said,
Yeah.
Then says something to the fact, and I think he said this to the girl, that he just threatened to grab her by the hair and physically accost her. It goes on these just nonsensical rants.
So did he post this on his? Was he?
This is the thing. He responded real nat, because people were responding and saying, "You're a shitbag," basically.
Yeah.
A lot of outrage, and then he goes,
"Sure."
Yeah, people were threatening me, but he lives in Atlanta, and he says, "Well, I know the Fulton County Sheriff. I know this. I know the police chief." Basically, just big shot saying, "I'm above all this. If you're going to threaten me."
So what's going on with him? Do we have any accountability with him?
No, he's
okay.
He's still got his page on Facebook. Even though he's been reported to Facebook by probably thousands of people, and he's bragging about that he can't be canceled. I guess he also thinks he's untouchable, or trying to make it sound like he's untouchable, and just trying to bow up a little bit, but hasn't softened at all. And he's just an absolute freaking nut job. And he spends, it seems like, less time talking about the weather and more time talking about himself, which, basically another Tucker Carlson.
Sure,
Which is really weird, because normally, the weather dudes usually are pretty chill, but this one, for some reason, he sounds like he's maybe got a little cocaine Donald Jr. type problem or something. Like he's real.
Well, it sounds like most MAGA people, because they can't compete against us. I mean, as far as when I say us, they can't compete against the real world. They have to create their own special niche, because. And I give them credit, because that's the reason they're so anti-woke, like you talk about Tucker Carlson.
Right.
Tucker Carlson is not the type of person that's going to be able to work for a corporation, NBC and ABC, or even a CNN. He's always got to work for an outlining fringe kind of thing, where there's going to be Newsmax or, some kind of
whatever. It has to be a place that fosters being an asshole, and really, to me, it's got to be an asshole factory. You got to be a dick work there, because can you imagine, like, a normal person, doesn't even have to be necessarily that progressive of a person, but just somebody with a little bit of sense, a little bit of common sense.
Exactly. Anyone who's worked in a professional environment.
And can you imagine going to work for Fox News or any of those other jackass, crazy conspiracy tinfoil hat, channels like OEN, Newsmax? This is basically a propaganda machine. They just crank out crazy fucking bullshit. And just as a normal person, because you got to realize that everybody there probably thinks that way, because there's no way you could be halfway sane and put out that kind of garbage. And so, but vice versa, a chode like that can't work anywhere else, because he's done this clown show for so long, and is so toxic, that is so misogynistic and racist, because he's used to just being that way on air. He's used to just saying whatever the fuck he wants to say, but up until now, any accountability. And this Chris Robbins jackass is the exact same way. Just a total fucking horse's ass. And you can tell the way he talks and the way he's trying to play off the death race. Chris, he's probably anybody that comes to the door with a gun and looks through his electronic doorbell thingy or his little peephole out of his little Nazi bunker and goes off on a child looking for their kitten is definitely got some issues. I'm sorry.
They also have illusions of grandeur.
Yeah. And really,
it's not like he's like the governor of Georgia who needs security.
Yeah. This dude raised. I'd never heard of this dude. I never heard of his trash can little web thing that has almost, ones of followers. And, we reach more people on this show than he does on his little
Exactly.
dumbass weather blog or whatever the fuck it is. But what a goofus, what a dinkus. And it's been a running theme, it seems like, this year, because the next topic, we're talking about Steven Crowder, and he was the one that was going off about wives shouldn't just be able to leave their husbands. There should be some type of means testing to get a divorce.
Oh, yeah. He's like the right-wing guy or something, right?
Another one of those little blog talking head type jackasses.
Yeah.
But he also, the reason his wife left him was because he got man boob surgery. He got gender confirming surgery. He had a sunken chest syndrome, and so he got adjusted, got himself some man boobs, and so he didn't look like the caved in weak ass that he is. And then there was complications, and when he had to have his surgery for his complications is when his wife was giving birth. But that also means that if he was having complications, that he chose to have this elective surgery pretty close to her giving birth. And so, clearly he picked himself over his wife. But also, during the divorce, it was uncovered how threatening and abusive he was. And, another Tucker Carlson wannabe. But it's gone a little further. So one of the things that he always rants about is trans people. And he accuses trans people of generally exposing their genitals to people. And in reality, and this is according to coworkers now, is that he actually likes to expose his genitals to coworkers.
I read that last night, Jenny. This is the guy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Crowder, that is, it's just, it kind of reminds me of Andrew Tate, where he pops off to that little environmentalist, whatever her name is. I'm blanking on her name.
The Swedish young, Greta.
Yeah, and how she turned it around and then it baited him to giving away his location, and then of course
exactly
warrant for his life because he's a stupid idiot. And these guys aren't smart. No matter who it is, people are always nowadays with emails and video cameras. You now have receipts. Like even this weather dude, he's putting this on his Facebook, his business Facebook page, not his own personal, but this is going down on his professional page, or in his case, unprofessional page. We'll be right back with some more Two Queers in a Truck, the Chode edition.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching us on Two Queers in a Truck. Don't forget, you can watch us anytime at your leisure on our video podcast platforms like Facebook and YouTube. But you can also listen to us, either this show or any of our past shows, on our audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and all of the other ones. So once again, thank you for watching Two Queers in a Truck. I hope you enjoy our show.
But these white entitled demons, whether it's a little boy calling his black friend monkey, or these jackasses going off there, it's the same personality type. It's the same environment that breeds this. That little boy's parents that was saying the racist name, the racial slur, that's where it starts. So he's in an environment, clearly it's very hyper racialized, even if the kid doesn't completely understand that. But he was old enough to know right from wrong. He was probably about 7 or 8 years old. Typically speaking, according to child psychologists, anybody about 5 knows that might doesn't make right. They know, 5-year-olds, that's why they usually are in kindergarten. Is that they're starting to learn, that they're starting to come into full childhood. They're not babies, they're not toddlers anymore. They have enough rational thinking to know, hey, that's probably not the best thing to do. It's not good to steal your desk mate's glue or pull their hair or do anything like this. But somehow some of these dudes escape the childhood raising experience, ended up being the same friggin' immature 4-year-olds in adulthood, like this Steven Crowder, that was a very abusive husband, and why his wife left him, among other things. But clearly was abusive in the workplace, because now coworkers are coming forward and saying, this guy's a shitbag overall. Like he's sitting there showing his junk to people. One, because he probably thinks he's entitled to do whatever he wants. We raise these white man-childs, just like a Donald Trump that's on trial in a civil suit for sexually assaulting and raping a woman. And he even said, I'll do what I want. I'll grab them by the... It's just this mentality, and it's very clear we've produced a lot of these shitbags.
It's got to, Jenny, I've been thinking about this lately, especially, you and I both live in North Carolina, for those who are watching or listening to us. And, I can say that Andrew and I, moved here for many reasons, but one of the reasons we love North Carolina, or we have loved North Carolina, because it's not a crazy state. However, this last year has been a crazy year, and it has been concerning. But one of the things that I've... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish that thought.
No, I was going to say that one of the things that I've been thinking about, because we've got a workout to do here in North Carolina to return it back to a non-crazy state by 2024 during the elections. These Tucker Carlson's, the person you're talking about, this white fragility kind of thing that's been going on, this culture war that they're trying to say, the Ted Cruz's, all of these kind of people, Josh Hawley's. It's got to be an exhausting life to be so afraid. Well, but not just being an asshole, of being so afraid of everyone else. It's got to be an exhausting life. I mean, and I don't feel sorry for them, but I do. But I do think, man, it's got to be exhausting, to feel like your back is up against a wall and everyone is against you, and that's exhausting. So in many ways, I don't feel sorry for them, because I know that their days of their thinking is so out of normal that even they know it.
I completely disagree with you.
Okay.
This is a big part of white nationalism, especially white Christian nationalism, is this victim syndrome. That they're really a dick, but they like playing the victim. They like playing the martyr. Oh, white people have got it so hard, even though we've made all the rules for 400 years in this country. But it's one of these things, and I think it's one of the reasons they embrace Christianity, because Christianity removes responsibility and accountability from the individual sinner.
Exactly.
That Jesus got nailed up on a wooden cross, and because he made that sacrifice of him sending himself down to earth to nail himself up on the cross, and he also inseminated little teenage, Mary in non-consensual sex, also known as rape. He conceived himself to make himself suffer for something that we should just be accountable for ourselves. And that whole mind fuck of Christianity and of these fake fairies and sky gods to say, I sacrificed myself, and then, you owe me all this, and this, but you can basically do what you want, because I'm always going to forgive you, as long as you have some kind of fealty to me. And so basically, especially the leadership in Christian churches, and I think this is why you see so many pedophile priests, so many white Christians that are pedophiles, rapists, and say this wacko stuff, because all they got to do is do thoughts and prayers and talk to their imaginary sky friend, and they're off the hook. You don't have to be a good person. In fact, morality and Christianity have nothing to do with each other, because real morality would come from enforcement and accountability. And these fucks think they can storm a Capitol and change an election anytime they want. They think they can scream at a little girl looking for a lost kitten, that they can ask, is Monkey there at 7 years old? And that there's not going to be any accountability, that, Monkey's mom's going to just send Monkey right out the door. And it's just so bizarro, and it's so ingrained in them at a young age. And there's other people that I follow, and growing up, white in a southern state, I've seen so much of this. This is nothing new. This is just, it's been talked about more because we can see more of it. We can see the videos of it. We see the receipts now. It's used to, a guy like Tucker Carlson just would have said it out loud in the office, or done a in-office memorandum that he could have just put in a shredder and it'd be forever gone. But now when you do an email, there's receipts, or somebody else that received it on the other end going, I'm going to save that little son of a bitch and I'm going to archive it, because eventually I'm going to sue this fucking place because he's a toxic boss and an asshole, just like the producer, Abby, what's-her-face, is suing Fox News.
Yeah.
And so now, what I call this, like you fuck around and find out. We're in the find out phase of the United States. And this is when these jackasses have been running roughshod for centuries. White, entitled, spoiled men have been doing this shit for centuries. And now that we're not white dominated anymore, and now that people know, that have the tools to say, you can't just say something and it just be erased from history. Now we can show you. We have 3 million videos and pics of the January 6th event. There is no hiding that. That's going to be in some sort of history forever. You can never even suppress that, as much as the Republican Party wants to. They want to act like, oh, it was Antifa. Well, so far, the 850 people sitting in a DC jail cell all seem to be Republican. So they haven't captured an Antifa yet. We haven't even found one on the video camera yet. But yeah, you go with your theory that you're 850 and 0 on that department. Don't let the little facts, confuse you, by your story. But I'm going to go to the next topic real quick. I suspended the timer for just a second because I think it's really an important discussion, because I do believe some of the stuff you did say was right. I think the only where I differ is I think it's just, there's a lot of people holding a lot of people accountable that they didn't used to. They used to be able to just roll over them. And now people aren't rolling over. Like Trump getting fired by 81 million Americans, that probably wouldn't have happened in the 1970s.
Well, I think what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it's right. What I'm saying is that there is a little bit of joy, admittedly, knowing that these individuals are going through a lot of self-destruction.
Yeah, well, you are.
You know what I mean? I hate to say it like that, but well, they have some really crappy lives. Yes.
Yeah, they're getting a surprise because in the find out phase of history, which
exactly. Yeah.
The find out phase is right after Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake." People said, "Hey, we got to talk to you outside for a second." They chopped off her head. And so we're in the beheading of Marie Antoinette for white males in this country, where they've already, for 400 years they said, fuck them and feed them fish heads, let them eat cake. And then we're going, hey, can you come outside for a second? We got something for you. Kind of like the pillow guy, got his
Mike Lindell.
Phone, he got his phone seized at Hardee's, and he's like all upset. I guess one, he wanted a big greasy Hardee's meal, and two, he probably wanted to take pictures of it and put it on his Instagram or whatever. Instead, he's I don't know if he ever got his Hardee's meal, but he sure didn't have his phone anymore. which was great. One of the things is there's a Nebraska lawmaker that's also being the find out part. Her name is Michaela Cavanaugh. She's been filibustering for 9 weeks to stop a trans bill that is attacking trans kids. And she's not trans herself. She is an ally. But she says, I don't care how much destruction this does to the legislative session. They have not been able to pass anything, including she's not even been able to pass things she wanted to pass because she's taking a stand. And there's only 3 weeks left of the session. She says, I'm going to go the distance. I'm going to make sure that this is a wasted session to prove my point, that we don't need anti-trans hate bills in the state. We don't want Nebraska to be indicative of that. I love this for her. She's getting a massive amount of national support because this is how Democrats win, is taking stands like this. They if you want to build our party into a legendary party of goodness, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to sacrifice an entire state legislation session to prove your point. And she's going to do it. She's not showing any signs of slowing up. She's up there at Mike filibustering. She's going to go another 3 weeks.
If you remember on our other show, Coffee and Panduce, this was one of our top Barb's current events when she first started. So I did not know that she was still doing it. So rock on.
As of yesterday, she was in her 9th week.
Wow, that's incredible.
She is literally the fuck around to find out as a person. Except she's the find out part. She's like, as soon as they struck up that bill, she went into her filibuster mode. And I'll be damned, she's still holding strong with 3 more weeks to go. She said, I have no intention of letting up because they're not letting up. And I'm just going to go the whole session. And just completely, what's going to happen is it's going to be a completely wasted session. And because they're so obsessed with trans kids, the Republican Party is, and their genitalia, obviously. And kids' genitalia in general, because they constantly talk about it. Yes. And they're passing bills where they're going to do genitalia inspection like Kansas did, just because they're obsessed, because 2 kids in the entire state of Kansas that play sports are trans. It's for 2 kids. All the other mostly little girls, are going to get their pooty poo inspected because Republicans are perverts and pedos. That has to be illegal to be inspecting kids' genitals. I don't know how that's legal, how that's not being a pedophile. It's like they're trying to legalize pedophilia, which I think is probably one of the long games. Which, incidentally, Republicans still fight for and keep child brides being legal in 43 states in the United States right now. In some states, it's legal to marry as young as a 12-year-old. And it happens. So, kind of gross, kind of nasty. That is the Republican Party. That should be their theme. Kind of gross, kind of nasty. Ratchet party. No banners allowed in Texas. Yesterday in Equality, Texas, or actually it'd be a week ago now, staffer named Sophia has been banned from the main campus of the legislature for a year. And, in the rotunda part of the Capitol building where a lot of press conferences happen, she happened to go up that one flight up and they have those little rotating deals. She hung down a banner. Like I've seen happen a million other times. For Republican causes and Democrat causes. And it just basically said protect trans people. It didn't say anything graphic. There weren't any threats on it. It was just a blue and pink flag looking thing, kind of like the one behind me. And nothing outrageous. The Texas DPS wrestled many people to the ground, body slapped some as well. And basically just turned a press conference into a police state because I guess the Republicans are too thin-skinned for democracy. So they decide that they just rather send out the Gestapo state police and just body slam people that aren't saying, hey, I'll roll over for this, that we're not going to fight this. And I think I'm struggling with the fact that when I respond to these things, I'm going, gosh, as somebody that was born in Texas, that I don't even consider Texas my home state anymore. Because I think when you say it's your home state, you're implying that eventually you're going to go back. At this point in my life, I would never move back there. I can't see in the foreseeable future imagining myself, and we both talked about this, we've come and gone through Texas as adults several times. I've left and come back to Texas multiple times. But the last time that I left, when I moved here, I knew I wasn't going to move back. And I had a very resolved feeling in my gut because I knew in 2018 when I left, it was rough. And I'm a pretty tough person. I'm a pretty resilient person. But it's just the dick attitude of conservative white men in Texas has made it such a miserable fucking place. And I'm not the only one. There's so many people, and there's so many companies that aren't going to move in there now. And they're just going to make it another fucking Mississippi or an Arkansas. It's just going to turn into, well, it already is a shitbag state, but it's going to be a shittier shitbag state. And I think, so, even some of the Latinos and Latinas are starting to figure out it's getting a little rough for them too. Because many of the people that were body slammed at the Capitol, the person that was banned is also Latinx. There's a lot of other things happening to Latinos and Tanos in Texas recently. And I think that's maybe what it takes to change the prevailing attitude in that community, that maybe they shouldn't go along to get along, but Texas didn't have any intention of stopping the trans people. They just wanted to test the waters on fuckery to see what they could do to trans people so they can use it on other people. And so they're going to use it on their black and brown neighbors. They just passed a bill, I believe, in this time, like a day or two ago, that's actually going to appoint an overseer of all Houston elections. So, and that this overseer can basically, this one person can oversee a duly elected Democrat. They can just flip an election and appoint a Republican in the spot instead. More or less, and Texas is the biggest city now, the state can wrestle power from a dominant Democratic Party. That basically says Texas is ending democracy as we know it. Obviously, that's never going to survive in court, but the fact that they thought that they could pass it and enforce it.
They don't care if it survives the court. All they care about is doing it so they can stick it to somebody.
Well, and also too in the precedent.
Yeah.
Because that won't be the last time. Just like when Arizona passed their Goon Squad law, where they could go around rounding up people that they think are illegal and harass them. You got thrown out of court immediately and never got activated. But then Texas is doing the same thing because now they think because the national Supreme Court is now clearly a Republican stronghold. I think one of the judges is for sale. Harlan Crow bought a lot of influence. It seems like it even paid for Clarence Thomas's mama's house there in South Carolina. Clearly just testing it. And a lot of people said, well, I remember a couple of years, and I've been told, even by local people, even by people involved with the other show, a lot of that's not going to pass. A lot of that's not that big of a deal. I got gaslit a lot about my saying they're coming for trans kids, they're coming for trans kids. A lot of people were treated me like Chicken Little. And now they've banned trans kids in 22 states.
Mhm.
So that means A, I was right, and B, no matter how many times it gets thrown out of court, it just takes one.
Yeah.
And I think we got to start taking this shit a little more serious. Like, Michaela up in Nebraska going 9 weeks and a filibuster. I think we have to see more of that. We have to see more fuckery coming from the Democrats. We have to go up that next notch. We need to see California passing out $10,000 fines for people that, try to prosecute, abortion clients or whatever. We need to see that aggression come from these blue states. There is. I mean, we're seeing Minnesota pass some laws to protect trans people, make safe harbors, do a lot of things. Colorado just did. California's that did it quite a while ago. We got to see these blue-run states, these Democrat-run states, take more aggressive stances and find ways. And of course, obviously, Dominion suing Fox. It's time to do the find out portion of history and make fascists and racists scared again, and send them packing into the bunkers of history. That's all the time we have for Two Queers in a Truck. It wasn't the most.
Well, we ended on a sour note. We promised we would end on an up note.
Well, the up note is that when legislatures, do something like that we still have Democrats out there that are willing to go 9 weeks filibustering. To me, that's pretty awesome. I'd love to see some of that style in Texas. I'd like to see the Democrats fight a little harder there. I'd like to see them fight a lot harder here in North
Carolina. Yeah, exactly.
We definitely could use some spinal grafts and transplants here. And we got to step it up, and we can. And we'll have a fabulous week, and enjoy the rest of May. See you next week.
Bye, Boo. See you next week.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching Two Queers in the Truck. Be safe out there. There's a lot of crazies, including unemployed Tucker Carlson. So y'all have a great week, and enjoy the shows.
Bye, Boo.
Bye, Boo.